You brought that up. It made me sad. I put them away. They're in the house. They're out of the trunk.
The family or the golf clubs?
Whoa! Whoa! The old clubs. I got 3 rounds in last week. It felt like a nice send-off to the season.
That's very nice. Very nice. Because, Jack and I drove over to the game on Saturday, and he looked, he says, "Are you putting those bad boys away?" Because they were still in the back of my car. And I said, "Yeah." I says, "I got to give up the ghost." I says, I haven't played since sometime in October, so yeah.
There's a Florida trip ahead of me this winter that I have to look forward to. But other than that,
yeah,
we got a lot of 30-degree days coming here.
Yeah, no question. Okay, so let's get to the press conference. Well, I want to get to the game first. You and I, of course, followed intently every game of the Jalen Pickett era here at Penn State. And I said earlier that when I talked to national announcers, they'd come over to shoot around and say, because they don't know him. Right? And I said, "What is it about Pickett?" And I said, "He has the ability in the first 5 minutes of a game to read the room. What's working, what isn't." And I felt, in a football sense on Saturday, I felt like Penn State football and their staff read the room, and that's why we saw the attack we did in the second half. Am I off base there? Is there a different perspective?
No, I think that's right. I think. Look, there's a certain element of Rutgers being what you think they are, right? I mean, that is not an offense that's really going to confuse you, but also you have to stop them, right? There's still that element of you need to win those matchups, and then defensively, look, maybe I'm the one reading into things too much, but I see or saw what felt to me like some very distinct differences this past week against what had happened the previous 10 weeks. And certainly we're talking about an offensive coordinator change in between there, but it may feel small using Bo Prabula in the first half, right? Even for a snap, just to give a different look, integrating him into the game earlier. I believe, we won't know based on how things played out with Drew, but I think that Bo Prabula would have appeared in the second half as well, with or without Drew getting dinged up. Usage of the tight ends, right? Just some of the things that they were trying to do felt different offensively. And then obviously in the second half, once Drew went down, look, there's a real hindsight conversation to have, I feel, about this season for Penn State based on what Bo brings to the offense. Not a conversation about Drew not being the starter, like nothing along those lines. But the notion that Bo does something to defenses that Drew can't, that would have helped Drew, would have helped the running backs, would have helped the receivers. I think there's a legitimacy to that. That is going to be interesting to see, how they explore that this week with Drew expected to be back.
What kind of peril does Bo as a quarterback in the running game create because you're not sure which guy has the ball based on how he plays and how the running backs play?
I asked Keaton Ellis after the game, and it sounded like a flippant question. It wasn't intended to be, but I asked Keaton Ellis. I said, "Hey, can Bo throw? Can he do that?" Right? And he laughed and he said, "Yeah, of course. He's a quarterback." But then Keaton got into what I was hoping he would get into, which is how he challenges defenses. Meaning, you literally just need an extra hat in there. You got to have an extra guy with an extra gap to be accountable for, and that is a significant difference to me. Like the underlying story here is 6 explosive runs in the second half. Penn State has not had 6 explosive runs for games since UMass. Had not had 6.5 all season. Okay? So his presence changes what Penn State, the way Penn State can be dynamic in the running game for those 2 backs. That, to me, that's the thing. It's not about Bo. Yes, he does something with his legs that also helps you. He can rip off chunk plays, and he did so on Saturday. Mm-hmm. But to me, the real conversation, or the meat of the conversation, is, hey, when he's in the game, he creates an avenue for the running backs that Drew can't when they do read option.
All right, so they do get to this game against Michigan State on Friday night. This is an opportunity for a 10th win, an opportunity at a New Year's Six bowl game. Those are the opportunities. You're talking to fans all the time. Is it really all just Michigan and Ohio State, and there's no perspective after that? What is it?
It's complicated, because I think when you get through the immediate gratification of the disappointment, right? Look, no one will argue against the notion that Penn State wants to get over the top against those 2 teams. That is a huge piece of this. Is the feeling as though, and it is a legitimate feeling, that this is a program that has had undeniable success. Okay, under James Franklin, we're looking at the potential here for 5 of the past 8 years having double-digit wins. I don't care what you say about the strength of the Big Ten. I don't care what you say about the non-conference schedule. That is an accomplishment. And if you're being honest with yourself, you wipe out the COVID year, that's 5 out of 7. Right. That is tremendous in terms of success. Yes. However, the feeling of plateau, of having hit a place and not making strides beyond it, as remarkable as that success is, and consistent as that success is, people want to win a championship. They want to get to the playoffs. James Franklin wants to get to the playoffs. These are absolutely worthy aspirations for the program. And so this year, depending on what happens on Friday, if they get to 10-2, will end up feeling for a lot of people like a disappointment. Is it dejection? I think that will taper off, to be honest with you. I think over the offseason, and a lot of it, this is super interesting to me, is the draw of the bowl game. Right? Who you get in the bowl? If you get Alabama and lose to Alabama, your season means that you didn't beat anyone good, right? You had 3 chances to beat someone good. In terms of how people perceive that. If you beat Alabama or get a team of that caliber in the bowl and win that game, it to me, I think, transforms opinions. It totally changes how people look at the Big Ten next year, right? Welcoming Oregon and some of those teams from the West Coast. It changes all of that. But to a similar vein, if you draw Tulane in a bowl, it won't matter what you do. People's perceptions will be completely dictated by what the game is, who you're playing, and what the outcome of that game is.
Yeah. What was the general feel that you got out of the press conference with James?
Yeah, look, I mean, and it was interesting because it kind of got brought to a head, right, is that he left breadcrumbs as to why Mike Yurcich is no longer the offensive coordinator at Penn State. So he did it throughout. He did it throughout the press conference. There were dots to connect. And at some point, he was asked, hey, are we connecting these dots correctly? Does this mean that you were, if you were happy with the collaboration, if you were happy with the fact that the playbook was whittled down and more concise, if you were happy with those things, does that mean you were unhappy with the prior arrangement? And look, this is just the way that he is, and I don't blame him for it in a public position. I think he wants to be able to leave those breadcrumbs and have people read between the lines. I know for a fact that he doesn't want to have to come out and say it explicitly.
Right.
So when he was asked that, he said, "Look, if you're asking me in a way that only creates an opportunity for me to say things in a divisive way, he's not going to do it." So the end result is, look, all of this is messy. All of this is complicated. There is no singular event or singular reason why you make a change within your coaching staff. But if everyone is paying attention, and I think everybody is, particularly this week, you're seeing, okay, what are the things that were different this week from last week? What is he saying about those differences? And what does that mean for how things were prior to that? And I think it completely opens the window. Is it about Ohio State and Michigan and the past 6 performances under Mike Yurcich against those 2 teams? Absolutely. That is a huge piece of this puzzle. But there are other pieces around it saying, hey, the way what did he say, Steve? The way the script, right? Having the play script for the game ahead of time.
Right.
Having the looks offensively for the scout team. But I mean, there's just a litany of things and that he felt had improved from the prior arrangement to this week. And I think it says a lot about what he wanted to do and where he's taking this.
Yeah, play scripts, cards, things like that you need for practice. Basketball will play Thanksgiving Day against Texas A&M. They're 4-0. They were expected to be 4-0. Texas A&M's 4-0. They were expected to be 4-0. The odd thing is when I've obviously done the prep on the game. They're not shooting the ball well, Texas A&M. And Penn State's been okay at shooting it. So what do we find out of this tournament based on the level of competition? Because either way, they're going to play Butler or Florida Atlantic in Game 2 Friday.
Yep, we're going to find out a lot. We're going to find out a lot. I think that there are levels to that, right? But the first one to me is, do they belong on the same floor? Is this the caliber of Penn State team that we're talking about? I have reservations to that. I would guess that you do too. In terms of the personnel that Penn State has, it is such a new collection in its entirety that it is difficult, even having played the competition that they have, to really get a full grasp and understanding of what it's going to look like against teams that are more capable than the opponents that they've played thus far. I don't think Lehigh's a joke.
No,
right? I don't think Lehigh's a bad team.
Right.
And you learn something about this Penn State team's makeup being in that situation of being in a tie game at half and coming out and doing the things that they did in the second half to win that game. You've learned things along the way, but there's just a lot of questions to answer. Penn State's defensive full court press, the things that they were doing this past Friday against Morehead State, is that effective against Texas A&M? How much are they going to pull that out? I have no clue. I have no idea what the ability of opponents that Penn State will face this season is to break that press. Right? Do those teams have guards that can do it on their own, or do you have to be organized? Do you have to have that down? So it's going to be super interesting for me to see that. And then, look, being honest about what I think this Penn State team is, we have seen enough evidence to say, you know what, Kanye Clary, Ace Baldwin can get to the rack when they want. They're going to do that this year. They will be met by different resistance in terms of the paint than they have seen thus far this season. Right. And so it becomes incumbent on Zach Hicks, Leo O'Boyle, and Puff Johnson to knock down threes. Jameel Brown, right? For those guys, they play an inside-out game. Penn State, like, you can see this from a mile away, what they're going to do. It's just a matter of okay, when you're playing these better opponents who are going to have better help defense, better perimeter defense, are your guys going to knock down those shots? They have got to do that, and it's going to be super interesting to see this weekend whether or not that's a component that's there yet, or if that's something that's still to be developed.
Right, and that's exactly what we're about to find out, because they have based on the polls, Texas A&M's 13, Florida Atlantic's 10. Somebody asked me about Florida Atlantic today, so you don't realize, like, their top 6 guys, the 5 starters plus their 6 men, they're all back. I mean, nobody left.
And there's teams on the other side of the draw, regardless of what happens.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
There's teams on the other side of the draw that are tough, too.
Yeah.
So, they're going to get 3 high-quality looks at teams that might not play a Big Ten brand of basketball necessarily, but they're going to give you a very, very good litmus test as a program where you stack up right now.
Yeah, no question about it. Back to Penn State. Playing this game on a Friday, you've got Kalen, Kobe King, Cass Tech. You've got Jalen Reed, MLK. They're Detroit guys. They're playing a team that's won 2 of its last 3 games. What's your just general thought on the game Friday?
Yeah, well, look, it's the same that I had this past week, which is you have to win this game.
No doubt.
Everybody's so fixated. Look, Steve, during the game, the conversation about stunting Bo's development by not letting him pass the ball, right? That is literally a thought that people had is, they're just not letting him pass the ball. They had passes in there. there were designed passes,
sure.
But there are RPOs, and Bo pulls it a lot.
Yeah.
That's just something that he does. He takes the run option. It is about nothing else. Development, all of that other stuff is totally fine. It is a bonus if you can get it. This game is about winning the game, putting yourself in the top 12 for the CFP, and then going to a New Year's Six game and letting things fall out from there. So I very much felt as though the conversation after Michigan, from externally, I'm not saying this is a reflection of what's happening internally, but externally, this notion that these games are just foregone conclusions, it is not. It is not at all. You gotta win the game. Period.
Yeah, that's. I tell my broadcasting class all the time, you start at 0, you prepare every game, regardless of what the opponent is, as to whether it will be a blowout, and you prepare every game as if it's going to go down to the last play, because you don't know what kind of game you're going to get. I thought that was good advice for them.
You have that sage wisdom. It's great, but it's true internally as well. This is a game that, yes, you are expected to win. Mm-hmm. Then they know that. Mm-hmm. However, doing it Thanksgiving week on a short week when nobody's on campus, right? Like the human element of some of this stuff does come into play. And this is a grind at this point in the season. You are looking forward to that week after the season ends, where it's not bowl prep yet, and you're just done for a little bit. Yeah. So they got to get through this. If they play their brand of football, if the defense is the same guys that they've been, if the offense builds on last week and turns it into something 2 weeks in a row. You got a great chance to win that game, and then you can worry about the rest from there.
My friend, I know you have a Zoom conference to get in on. You jumped in last minute. I always appreciate that, and in all sincerity, all kidding aside, happy Thanksgiving to you and that great family of yours.
Thank you so much, and the same to you. I look forward to seeing you soon. I won't be in Detroit, but I will catch you soon enough, I'm sure.
Sounds great. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Great to bring in Bob Nightengale, USA Today. Bob, first of all, how have you been?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, so I remember we had a conversation earlier, and you were talking at the All-Star break about the fact that some of the higher salary teams were struggling and some of the lower salary teams were doing well, and they ended up being concerned about it. In the end, Texas is the team that spent some money the last couple of years. Whether it was Seager or people forget Jacob, they acquired Jacob deGrom. I mean, they acquired some cash along the way. Is that now helping to bolster the Players Association idea?
Well, it did. I mean, they were still below a $200 million payroll, but they dropped, $500 million on the free agents with the, Marcus Simeon and Corey Seager. And, it was better than the Diamondbacks win the World Series with about a $100 million payroll. Right. And their, most expensive guy was Madison Bumgarner, who was released in May. I think that helped the cause for agents to say, if you spend money, you're going to win.
All right, that means one of the more important press conferences is when Scott Bauer sits down with everybody. What was your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I mean, he, obviously campaigning for his guy. He's got about 6 of the top 10 guys. He doesn't have Ohtani, doesn't have Yamamoto. But, he has a Blake Snell, has a Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger, that sort of thing. So, his thing was, hey, the Texas Rangers, plan worked. Of course, he had, I think he had 7 Rangers on that team. And he liked to have the pitch clock. It was interesting. Pitch clock go up as the innings mounted. So if you pitch 3 innings, all of a sudden you get an extra second on the pitch clock. 2 seconds. When you wait to 6 innings, you get to 20 seconds. He thinks that was a cause of injuries. I don't know. I haven't heard any team or any pitcher say that was a cause. The one thing he's brought up, and it brought up once again, was a neutral site World Series. Now he says just a neutral site for all games. I don't think that would fly. But in the past, he says, how about the first 2 games are a neutral site? That way you can have all the award winners, you can have celebrities show up and things like that. And there is something to that. I mean, when you're at the Super Bowl, you see all the NFL players and celebrities at it. When you're in a World Series, I kind of one hand the amount of current players I see at a game.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and I see where he's coming from with it. But the Super Bowl is a game, and the atmosphere of the Super Bowl is rather neutral. The atmosphere of the World Series game is not, and that part, personally, that's the part I enjoy. The fact the fans are so into it.
Yeah, no, they get into it, and they more regular fans and the corporate fans like you get at the Super Bowl. I've been a number of Super Bowls as a fan, and the interesting with the World Series now, or even playoffs for that matter, it's just that there's really hardly any home field advantage.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a team like a Houston Astros. once again lost all 4 at home, won all 3 on the road. Just like in 2019 World Series. Texas was ended up at 11-0, 12-0 on the road. It's amazing how some of these teams are better off on the road, just blocking out all the actions.
What about the move of Craig Counsell going from the Brewers to the Cubs and David Ross being out in Chicago? What was your thought on that interesting move?
Well, first it was a complete shocker that would happen since he already had a manager. Dicey thing. I mean, for Counsell, it's a win-win. He gets all the money he wants, and pretty much he stay home. Live at home. I mean, it's only 90 miles away,
right.
So I'm sure he'll get a condo in Wrigleyville or Chicago, but be home a lot. The one thing it does, and a lot of the managers are upset with this. He took someone's job. There were 5 job openings. You didn't have to take someone else's job, so that's going to cause a rift. Even the 2 GMs have yet to talk. I can't imagine Counsell and David Ross ever speaking again.
No, I can't imagine either. And not only that, a lot of managerial jobs, it seems more and more are going to younger people. The Angels didn't do that. Ron Washington is 71 years old. He's been to the World Series twice as a manager. What was your thought on the Angels turning to him?
I was thrilled by that. I know the Perry Manasian had talked about that, and I said, man, I'd love to see you guys do it. There's a couple off the field things that hurt Wash, and as far as not getting a job back. But the funny thing was, so the GM meetings are in Phoenix, and so went out to dinner with a few people one night, and they were trying to keep it secret. And there's Ron Washington, Perry Manasian, standing outside waiting for their table. And I know both of them forever, particularly Wash. And I said, Perry, if you'll hire this man, I'll buy you guys dinner right now. He goes, I'm trying. So I owe Perry Bonanza dinner.
Obviously, people will have issues along the way, and Ron's have been talked about. What is it about the quality of the man that, in the end, brings such confidence from the players and those who are around him?
Yeah, just a baseball lifer. I mean, here he's at 71. You go to those Atlanta games. I mean, he's in that dugout at 1 o'clock, 1:30, working with the infielders. Every single infielder took infield practice with him, and he used to always talk all the time how valuable it is, for players to play at the post. He hates when players that play at 1:30 and taking the game off, each one day a week. He says, go play. And you look at those Atlanta teams, all those guys always play every day.
Yeah.
Marcus Semien, who he had in Oakland, played 179 games this year, the most plate appearances by anybody in baseball history. So, yeah, so hopefully he jumps on those guys and make sure, guys like Anthony Rendon, a guy like Mike Trout, start playing a lot more.
What's interesting is that the Minnesota Twins, they finally went around, and then in the next round they did win a game. So they did things that they hadn't done in a long time. Yet, as you wrote 2 days ago, they're looking to reduce payroll. How interesting did you find that to be, and why are they doing it?
Well, their ticket sales weren't high, so it wasn't at the big boost in attendance. I think they're just being honest. I think there's a whole lot of teams that are thinking about, hey, we may reduce payroll here. And the one thing, in their situation is they don't have a TV contract.
Yeah.
They lost, the Valley Sports. That was about $60, $70 million a year. It's gone away. I mean, they'll recoup some, and they'll be doing their games. But that's a big financial hit. And there could be like 10 or 11 teams that don't have a TV contract, for next year, including San Diego. San Diego is dropping theirs down by $50 million. So I think it's going to be a little bit more widespread than we think.
So I wanted to bring that up. The regional sports networks were thought to be, years ago, the savior financially for franchises. And then suddenly this comes up. How taken aback are the teams by how the regional sports network part is played out? And what are some of the adjustments you're starting to see now because of it?
Yeah, there's a lot of nervousness. I mean, now you got to go back and sell all the ads yourself for TV. How's it going to be distributed? Baseball's going to help, but they're not guaranteeing 80% like they did a year ago. They're not guaranteeing anything. So no, it's more of a shaky environment, and we've been people have talked about this in history for years. Just people don't want the cable TV. They don't want to pay for the thing. They just want to pay for individual channels they watch. So that's a real concern. And teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, may not like bandits with their moves because, it's their own network and they got a jump start before everybody else. So here's the Dodgers, their contract was, I think it was $8.3 billion over 25 years.
Yep.
And, nobody in the division is even close that kind of money.
Everybody around here, of course, always wants to know about the Phillies. What do you think the Phillies might be leaning toward in this offseason to then bolster themselves so they can not only get back to a World Series like they were a year ago, but this time win it?
Well, at least they made a decision on, Bryce Harper. Excuse me, he should be playing all season long now at first base. They need their starting pitcher. I don't think I might be the minority. I don't think Aaron Nolan's coming back. I think he was going to come back. He would have already signed him.
Yeah.
They have had a year to do so. He was just okay during the regular season, better in the postseason. I keep hearing Blake Snell's name all the time. I'm not sure how Blake Snell can handle the Philadelphia market. That'd be my concern with him. But yeah, I mean, they're going to still spend money. They're still going to be, out to win it. And, they should be back in the playoffs. They just stopped hitting. I think they made a mistake. I covered that series when they came to Phoenix. They were up, 2-0. Came to Phoenix, flew in on the off day, came to work out, but did not take batting practice. The next day, did not take batting practice. All of a sudden, they weren't the same team hitting wise. those bats got cold in a hurry.
Yeah, they sure did. All right, the Yankees will be an intriguing offseason story. So what are some of the things that we should be looking at to read the tea leaves with Brian Cashman as to what he needs to do?
Well, I think next year's a big year for Cashman and certainly for Aaron Boone to win. At least got to get back in the playoffs again. Got to go get another starting pitcher for sure. I don't see them involved in Ohtani sweepstakes. I mean, Ohtani can pitch for at least a year, maybe 2 years before he pitches again. But I think just say they got to bring at least one big star, at least another big star pitcher, fortify that bullpen, and I think they need a center fielder too. I mean, a guy like Kevin Kiermaier, who's out there, you get him for a cheap contract. I think it'd be a hot commodity among both New York teams, and a number of others as well.
And he is a defensive whiz. Man, what an outfielder he is. I'll leave you on this one. Craig Breslow takes over. I'm sorry?
Oh, no, I was going to say, great in the clubhouse, great in community. He's got the total package.
Yeah. Craig Breslow takes over running the Red Sox. They were anywhere from whatever ranking you see, 13 to 15 in payroll. You and I both know that's not the Red Sox MO. Do you see them spending more money this offseason?
I do. I think the fans were kind of discussing what happened. I think they'll trade Verdugo. I don't see Verdugo being back. I think they got to bring a star in there. They'll go after Ohtani. I think the New Balance is out of Boston. They'll go hard after him. I don't think they'll go there, but I do think they got to bring in one big marquee name for sure. No matter if it's a Bellinger or whether it's a Nola. A Yamamoto, something like that. But I'd be shocked if they don't spend, $150, $200 million on one free agent.
I apologize. This will be my last question. Shohei Ohtani. Okay, I do have to ask about him. All right, so it's interesting. He can't pitch next year, right, because of Tommy John, but he sure can hit. So what will the competition be like? Where do you expect the competition to be for him?
I mean, I think you'll have 10, 12 teams bidding for him, just because of brand, nothing else. I mean, he's worth at least $25 million a year just off field endorsements, licensing, merchandise sales. Who knows when he pitch again? Some GMs don't think think he may never pitch again. We'll see. Last time he had Tommy John surgery, he missed 2 years. And that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee he'll be back in 2025. Certainly not by opening day. But I think the Dodgers are the favorites, being right there in Southern California. They always win. I think the Angels are still right there. I think if the Angels thought they had no chance, they would have traded him. But they believe there's a chance. And I think San Francisco may offer the most money. They really need help at the ticket window. Just, ever since the pandemic, downtown has kind of become a ghost town there. All the office buildings are shut down, or a lot of the office buildings are shut down. And Seattle will be involved, San Diego will be involved. A lot of people think the Cubs are the dark horse. I can't see him pitching that weather. Texas, to me, would make sense if he goes outside California.
Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your valuable time, and love talking baseball with you. Thanks, Bob.
Sure, my pleasure. Take care, Steve.